was a price 201.
Hey, hi all. Randy Roth here. Hey, so often we're told that there's a 7-year tribulation. Where did that idea come up with? Scripture doesn't present that. What we're told is that it's Daniel's 70th week. I remember, I don't know, about 10 years ago when the Lord told me, I remember walking out across my lawn, headed towards the dike that goes across the pond over to the garden. And I was heading to the garden, and the Lord was telling me, Daniel's 70th week is not a futuristic period of time. I was like, really? Yeah, that's not going to go over too well. And so I asked the Lord at that time, if that's the case, you're going to have to show me how that, plays out. See, the idea of Daniel's 70th week being a futuristic period of time comes from a singular individual prior to the Pony Express. Okay, so you say, oh, well, no, that singular individual didn't come up with the idea that he came up with. Well, the reason I bring up the Pony Express is because it happened in the time when the fastest mode of transportation was horseback, just like when Daniel wrote it. And you see, Daniel, the book, was sealed up until the time of the end when men could run to and fro and knowledge would increase. It's found in Daniel 12:4. And so if you're going to say, hey, look, this concept that there's a 7-year period of tribulation, and it comes from an idea that's prior to Daniel being unsealed. Well, what do you mean Daniel's unsealed? Well, today we have the combustion engine, we have the airplane, we have the train, we have buses, and we have men running to and fro throughout the earth. And the internet has allowed for knowledge to increase exponentially. Prior to the automobile, the knowledge would increase and double over a period of hundreds of years. Now with the internet, knowledge can double within a period of a year, 2 years. And it has been. If you can actually measure it out. People have these stats. Anyways, the point being is that the book of Daniel was sealed up with the idea that there's a 7-year period, tribulation period. That idea came when the book was sealed up. So to suggest that is to suggest something that couldn't have happened. So what is Daniel's 70th week? Well, Daniel's 70th week has a real anchor point there in that it shows that the sacrifices and offerings end in the middle of a 7-year period of time. Well, the sacrifices and offerings did end in the middle of a 7-year war known as the Roman-Jewish War or Jewish Uprising. It started in 66 AD and ended with the fall of Masada in 74 AD. And so in the middle of that week, Titus came in. Titus had made a covenant with the Roman Senate to squelch the Jewish uprising. And in 70 AD, he went in, the temple was destroyed. That's what it says about the 70th week, that it'll be decimated, which it was. And Jesus also speaks of this time when the disciples ask a 3-part question in Matthew 24. This is recorded throughout the Olivet Discourse, Matthew 24, Luke 21, Mark 13, in which we are all told the answers to these 3-part questions. The first being the destruction of the second temple. When will these things be? The second, the next part, and when is the sign of your coming? And the third part, how is the end of the age? And so we have these 3 different subjects addressed in the Olivet Discourse. And we were told that Jesus answered them saying. So to suggest that when he's speaking about the temple is about a futuristic temple is to suggest that Jesus didn't answer their direct question concerning the destruction of the second temple. Okay, so there are two temples, in case you didn't know, so I felt like I need to address that. The first temple, I believe, was built by Solomon, and it was destroyed. And then the second temple was created, and that's what was around when Jesus and the disciples pointed out, look at this temple, look at this building, isn't it magnificent? You'll see that recorded in the beginning of the Olivet Discourse, Matthew 24, Mark 13, Luke 21. Okay, so often I get accused of being a preterist because I point this out, that this is what is actually being said. And when people hear the word preterist, they immediately close their ears, go, no, 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 no. Because to suggest preterism is to suggest that Jesus, this all occurred in a generation, one generation period of time, because Jesus said, I tell you that this generation will not pass away until all these things are fulfilled. And that's what preterism shows, is that, oh, well, there's a generation, Jesus came back, all this stuff happened in the Olivet Discourse. The problem with that is that the word is not generation. Jesus spoke Aramaic, and the Aramaic shows that it's a nation or tribe or people. And there's a translation error from Aramaic to Greek, which shows generation. See, it could go either way. It can go to people or generation when you translate from Aramaic to Greek. And they chose incorrectly in their translation. So there's a translation error. Jesus was saying that this people, this nation of Israel, will not pass away until all these things are fulfilled. Israel, it looked like she had passed away. She was scattered to the nations. The time of Jacob's trouble, the worst time ever, is a 2-chapter prophecy, Jeremiah 30:31, in which it shows that the Jews are scattered to the nation, Jeremiah 30, verse 10 and 11, and then later gathered in 31:8. And it mentions the north country, that they're gathered from the north country. You know, today there is 6.5 million Jews in Israel. During the Jewish diaspora, when they were scattered to the nations from the time of Rome until 1948, right after Nazi Germany, 12 million Jews were killed during that time, 6 million by the Nazis. Only 6.5 million Jews live in Israel today. And so to suggest that a more worse time ever will happen to Israel is, right now, it's an impossibility, because more than twice, well, not more than, but about twice the population of Israel was killed during that time. And to suggest that the more worst time ever event is imminent, well, that just doesn't flow with scripture or history. And all that is suggested from a singular man's interpretation of scripture. You know, Peter tells us that there is no singular interpretation of scripture, 2 Peter 1:20. And so to suggest that you know, there's a more worse time ever that's about to come on the Jewish people, and that they're going to be scattered again to the nations. You know, 4 prophecies in the Old Testament tells us that once Israel is gathered, she will never be scattered again. And Zechariah tells us that when Jesus comes, that half of Israel will be under, or Jerusalem, one of the two, will be in captivity, not scattered to the nations. See, the time of Jacob's trouble was a scattering to the nations, not a 7-year tribulation period, which we are often told. Jesus answers the disciples' direct question, when will this time be, the destruction of the temple? And he shows that there's an abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet. Let the readers understand. The readers understood that in, what was it? I want to say 64, or was it 164 BC, that Artaxerxes IV came in and sacrificed a pig on the altar. They understood what an abomination of desolation is. Today, it's just some real grandiose idea. Ezekiel, like 46, verse 7, tells us that an abomination is somebody with an uncircumcised heart entering into the place that entering into the temple. Somebody who is a Gentile and enters past the court of the Gentiles, that's an abomination of that's an abomination. Desolation shows the destruction of it. You know, it was destroyed in 70 AD. No scripture ever states that the temple will be restored, that a third temple will be rebuilt. But it does say that Jerusalem will come out of heaven. It does say that the man of perdition will sit in the place of God and declare himself to be God, but the place of God is no longer a building. Jesus made that so that the temple of God is the hearts of men. And to suggest that it's a building now, rather than the hearts of men, is to not only belittle the work of the cross, is to place God into a box that he doesn't want to be in. It's that is done. That is in the past. The place of God is the hearts of men. So, you get the man of perdition sitting in the place of God. Well, if you're going to worship the beast, the man of perdition is in your heart. I mean, that's you're following after. There's a lot of people who say, "Oh, well, that's way out there." It's real out there to suggest that the place of God is a box and not the hearts of men. All right, so we're moving on here. So what is the tribulation? The tribulation continues until all of Israel is gathered. Oh, that's Hosea chapter 9. And so we're told that that after the tribulation of those days, you will see the Son of Man coming. Matthew 24, verse 29. The tribulation is not over until all of Israel is gathered. So we have a very long tribulation period of time. It's not a short amount of time. It is the scattering to the nations to the time that it is completely gathered. And so to suggest that it's a 7-year period of time, and there is no scripture that even remotely states that. So why is this important? Well, in Revelation, we are told there are groups of time. For instance, the first beast of Revelation shows a time of 42 months. The first beast, if you watch my videos on that, you'll find that the first beast very well could be the vaccination and pandemic that we're currently going through. If it lasts for 42 months, we won't know for certain until retrospect. They say, oh, it's 42 months. Yeah, it lasted 42 months. It had all the markings of the second beast, which it does. It's making war with the saints. It's really starting to ramp up there. If the vaccination was effective, then today everybody should be happy. Those who feared the pandemic could say, oh, well, I have an effective vaccination now, I'm good to go. And those who say, hey, look, the vaccination is not safe, well, they too can be happy that, we can all move on, right? But That's not what's going on. Today it's ramping up. We need to check out Revelation 13. It shows that there is that it makes war with the saints, and that's what's ramping up right now. It's over, the whole scare pandemic. So what they got to do is they got to reestablish somehow this pandemic, which, they're like Sherry Tenpenny is predicting in the news today that this fall that it's really going to ramp up, and that there's going to be a lot of deaths happening, especially from those who've taken the vaccination. That's her prediction. So we'll see what happens. But the pandemic is not going quietly right now, which it should be. So, there's other ideas as far as times time and half a time. Well, that's got to be 3.5 years, right? And you got to put two of those together. No, times time and half time is not 3.5 years. That idea first was presented by Aristotle, long before the time of the Pony Express. So Daniel mentions times time and half time twice, and it's also mentioned in Revelation 12. What is times time and a half time? Well, 2,500 years after Daniel mentioned it the first time, 1,000 years, times 2,000 years, half time, 500 years, 2,500 years after Daniel mentioned it the first time, Israel got her land back. The second time after Daniel mentions it in his writings was the 6-day war in 67. So, hey, look, we have, this concept that's widely taught about a 7-year tribulation. And what it does is it really keeps people from actually being able to study Revelation. If you think it's all in this little box that's futuristic, then you can't study it for what it is. You can't see the big picture. Just like preterism, you can't see it if you believe that it all happened, and so it all has to fit into this box here. Preterism is all in this little box way back in the one generation, and this pre-trib rapture doctrine is, well, it all sticks in this little box of a 7-year period of time in the future. The book of Revelation, we're well into it. We've already seen the 4 horsemen ride, their 4 world conquests. We saw the Catholic Church, the white horse. We saw the black horse, the red horse, the communism. We saw the black horse, Nazism. And we saw the green horse, which is environmentalism. In the last 42 years since Roe versus Wade, I got that number wrong, but it's close to that. This last year, 42.7 million babies were aborted. If you multiply that by the 40 some odd years that since Roe versus Wade, we have 1/4 of the population of the earth already being wiped out due to the world conquest of environmentalism. And environmentalism is still going strong, as is Catholicism and communism. I mean, they're still there, and they're still producing their push for dominance. But we're still seeing the 4th horseman ride. The 5th seal, we're still seeing that. The amount of martyrdom is still. I mean, what does it say? Excuse me. What does it say? It says that their number is not complete. Not yet complete. And then it shows the 7th seal, which it's kind of obscure what that seventh seal is. I mean, a lot of people speculate, but the seventh seal very well could be it opening up to the 7 trumpets. So, or it could be an overlap. I don't really see it as an overlap, but I do see the bowls and the trumpets as an overlap, which I presented in my last video. So I recommend you watch that as well. Where we're at is we're well into the book of Revelation. The thing, though, that's really important is that you don't worship the beast. There's the first beast and the second beast. And if the first beast is the pandemic, what is it to worship the beast? Is it to wear the mask? I mean, it's pretty much required in a lot of places. Or is it to take the vaccination? Very well, that could be a form of worshiping. So we need to figure out what we need to know. And we're not going to know if we're stuck into these little boxes that these long-term, doctrines push out that were created before the book of Daniel was unsealed. All right. Hope this is helpful. Take care. God bless.